Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Learn at Cloud Analytics. So, as per the series that we've been looking at, we've been talking about how do we handle an end-to-end Power BI project. So, as part of the series, in the prior video, we had looked at how do we gather the business requirement by ensuring that we ask all the key questions with the business by using the 5 Ws principle. So after we had put forth the questions with the business and we've got all the question and answers, and we also had the information that is needed for us to get started. So in today's session, we would be looking at what are the prerequisites for us to begin with the reporting part in Power BI, and we'll also look at the first question, that how do we answer that by reporting layer. So, the prerequisites for us to look at are, apart from the 5 Ws that we might have asked with the business in the previous video as we've looked at it, there is also another key question that needs to be addressed during our workshop with the business user, which is about the data source information. So, what is the data source that is needed for this reporting, and where is this data source located, and all the inputs that is needed for us to get connected with the relevant data source. So, once we have all this information in place, this would help us to ensure if the data source is already existing in the database, or if there is a need to look at to create the tables and the structure and the schema, and so that we also get to know what is the timeline that needs to be expected for this delivery of the project. So once we have all this information in place, then we would also need to consider, assume that the data is already available, and we might need to look at the data structure to analyze if there is any need for performing any additional transformation on the data set. So this would help us to gauge, or predict on the timeline that we've committed to the business. Now, once we have everything in place, now the next important prerequisites that needs to be looked at is the Power BI desktop, because for us to work with the reporting part, we would need to ensure that we do have this tool being configured on the respective workspace, and also have access to the Power BI service to allow us to publish this report once the development is completed. So Power BI service is a SaaS offering from Microsoft, so which would allow us to collaborate our projects with the respective consumers. So now let's quickly look at the first question that has been requested by the business requirement session. So the first question is, which month and year had the most profit? Okay, so now assuming that for this particular demo purpose, we use this data source in a flat file, which is in an Excel workbook. So I'll be using the Superstore data set for our analysis. Now, I have already pulled this data into Power BI Desktop, but for quickly, I'll just show you how do you connect to this data source. So on the home ribbon, where we have this get data, I'll just click on this get data and select this Excel workbook, which would allow us to browse through the location to connect to the or select that specific workbook. Now I've already selected the workbook Superstore dataset, and I've selected the table orders table for the specific analysis, and this is the different columns that are available within my data. So as a quick overview, I can just go to this data view from the left side of this pane, and since I've already selected this orders table, this would allow me to go through the different columns that are part of this data set. So I can easily navigate through the different columns and understand what is the data structure, and how are the data being stored, and what are the values within the specific columns, so that it gives me a quick overview of the data set. And this is also an opportunity where you should look at the data profile, like if there is any need for change in data type, or if there is any need for any data transformation or cleansing of the data. So all that can be looked at from this data view. So, since the data is well structured and it is well organized, and I also see that the key column for our analysis is the order date, This has also been stored as a date data type. So it's all good to go. So I'll quickly navigate through the report view, and let's first work on the first requirement. So the first requirement is we would need to analyze the profit based on month and year. So I'll just go to this order date and select this order date, and choose the metric which is profit. So I have this report being created as I select the columns from my data set. So now what do I do? I'll just use this visualizations pane, and navigate through the different visuals that have been predefined here, and I'll just select one by one to see and understand which specific visual does interpret my business requirement in a better way. So as you can see, the moment I've selected a line chart, this helps me to understand the progress being noticed over the period of time with respect to the metric which is profit. So therefore, I'd like to use the specific visual for my current analysis. But my question is, or the business question was that they would like to look at the most profit based on month and year. But this data has not been provided based on the month and year. So therefore, I'll just look at how this data has been organized or added on my axis. So since I do not want this every date part of my date level, so I'll just try to avoid this quarter and day, and I'll be left with the year and month. However, the data is still not broken down with respect to both year and month, and therefore I'd like to remove this year from this axis. However, I'd like to add this year on my legend. So that would help me to see the progress of the profit over every year and with respect to the different months, right? So in order to help the business make a better decision, what I can also try to do is I'll try to add a slicer on top of this with respect to my year. So I'll just minimize this and adjust this towards the top right corner, and I'll try to navigate through the years, and probably I'll select only for 2 years, which is 20 and 2021. Okay, now as I select this slicer to choose between the 2 years 2020 and 2021, the visual has also been automatically updated with the two different years, and I can easily assess the data and see the profits over this particular timeline. Now looking at this visual, I can also notice some key observations, which is for the specific month March, there is a steep hike and a steep depth during the previous year and the current year, right? So if you observe here, exactly for the specific month, you see, so in 2021, this there has been noticed a lot of profit. However, in 2020, which is the prior year, there was a steep in this profit, so which is quite noticeable, right? And also you could see those spikes over different periods as well. So this is the right visual that I've selected. So I can ensure that by providing this visual to the business, they would be allowed to get the right questions, right answers being observed out of this particular visual.